What is going on, everybody? It is Monday, March the 29th, and that means it's time for my news radar. As always, this channel is community supported, and you can help out in a number of very simple ways. Simply hitting that like button, sharing this video, or subscribing does help a ton. And if you want to take that extra step, click that join button down below to become a member and support the channel even more directly. Thanks. So I've talked a little bit on this channel in the past about something called PWAs. And if you don't know what a PWA is, it is a progressive web app. And basically what this does is it takes kind of what the concept for Chrome OS was initially, and it just works on any platform. The idea is that a website can be an app, and it can be installed or basically just linked to on your computer, and that will run like an app. There's no need to have a YouTube app on your computer. You can just go to the website. But even better than that, you can actually install a link directly to YouTube that can be on your taskbar, on your desktop, or whatever. And when you go to it, you don't have your full URL bar at the top. You get a fully immersive, full screen YouTube experience that is similar to an app, but it is running inside your web browser. This actually does help out a lot, and it's a really nice feature. It's something that I actually use. I have a PWA installed for YouTube TV, and YouTube Music, and they're attached to my personal account, which allows me to then use my scary if literal work account, if you will, on my main web browser. So it allows me to kind of have both going at once without having to continually switch out accounts whenever I want to watch something. On the front of PWAs, it looks like Microsoft is going to be tweaking Edge, which is their browser, which runs on Chromium. It's a Chrome-based browser to work even better with web apps. And you can see here that this is kind of a messy headline here. You got this image in the background, but the headline is Microsoft wants to make Edge PWAs visually indistinguishable from regular Windows 10 apps. And what they're showing here up at the top is basically what we're talking about. So for now, when you launch a PWA, you have this bar up here at the top that indicates to you that this is not a native app, basically that's running in a web browser. What they're doing is they're updating Edge to make that, your ability to close, maximize, and minimize all just run together into the top of the PWA, which makes it look much more seamless and makes it just look like a proper native app installed on your computer. They say here, this feature enables developers to build web apps which make better use of screen space and allows them to design their app to feel more like a native app. As devices become smaller for portability, the title bar consumes a larger fraction of the screen, leaving less room for the user to interact with the app. And that's absolutely true. When you're talking about portable apps in particular, that extra space is something. It's actually, you're saving a decent amount of space there by simply rolling that into that title. So for me, the PWA that I have installed of YouTube, you can see exactly what I mean here. Up at the top, you've got a back button, a refresh, YouTube. You've got, this bar up here that really just doesn't need to be there necessarily. You could roll all of this together up into that top bar, and I think it would look a lot better. So that's a pretty interesting little story. I love PWAs, and I think that they are most certainly the future. You're going to have things like, Spotify is no longer going to have an app on Windows. There's no need to. You can just go to the website and install that on there natively, and it works really well. So here's another thing that you might not totally know about. Let's jump back over here to my full screen display here, and let's go to the Spotify web player, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So once you get in here, if you click on your settings and under apps, you can click on install Spotify, and that's all it is. Whenever you install it, it basically gives you this little interface here, which will then cause it to run in this style window. And then even in your start menu, there is Spotify there. And you can, of course, uninstall it just like you could a regular app. But of course, all that is just the web browser. Like I said, that is the future. One of the things I use to edit my thumbnails and everything is actually just a website. I don't even use Photoshop or GIMP or anything like that. So web apps, very powerful. Very cool. So let's switch gears here a little bit and talk about some of the things that Xiaomi did announce today. And I think the coolest, craziest one for me is their own AirPower clone. If you don't remember, Apple announced, it's been a good minute ago now, something called AirPower. And what this thing was supposed to be was this. It was meant to be this wireless Qi charging pad that you could drop on your iPhone, your watch, your earbuds, everything onto one pad, and it would charge all of them. It was supposed to be super cool, and then guess what? It never came out. They never released it. It went dead silent, and then eventually they came out and said, yeah, air power is canceled. We couldn't get it to work correctly. It was drawing too much heat, etc., etc. Because what this thing is basically you've got this pad, the inside of it, you have like a ton of wireless charging coils. And you can see here in this image what the Xiaomi version of this actually looks like, because Xiaomi said, oh, Apple couldn't figure this out. Well, guess what? We can't. 19 coils buried in this pad, and it is exactly what you think it is. It is a straight up clone of a product that Apple announced and then failed to deliver. And just like I said here, almost an identical design to what Apple had, 19 embedded coils, and that's really cool because you can drop your device down anywhere on that pad and it's going to find a coil nearby and it's going to start charging. Remains to be seen, if this thing's going to get really hot like Apple said theirs was, how this is going to work, if it's actually going to be released, but still pretty cool that Xiaomi is saying, we've got this figured out. As mentioned here, it's going to be about $90, 20-watt wireless charging per device, which is pretty solid, but we don't know if it's going to be coming out outside of China, and definitely no Apple Watch, no sort of compatibility there. Sticking with Xiaomi, we have, as Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD, has said on Twitter, we have a new world champion for thickest camera bump, and that is the Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra, which I cannot decide if I hate or like. It's absolutely gargantuan. And if you look here from the top down, I'm assuming this was the Samsung. I'm assuming this was like an S21 or something like that. Look at that bump on that Mi 11. Let's dive a bit deeper here into the Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra because this thing deserves a bit of a deep dive. They just announced this thing today, running the Snapdragon 888, 12 gigs of RAM, 256, 3.1 UFS storage, super fast storage there. 5,000 milliamp hour battery, which is a jump over the standard Mi 11 that we already knew about. 67 watt wired charging and 67 watt wireless charging, which is bonkers. 6.81 inch WQHD display, 120 hertz refresh rate, 480 hertz touch polling rate. This thing's specs are off the chart. In-display optical fingerprint scanner, of course. But we're here to talk about the camera, right? So the primary sensor is a 50 megapixel sensor, 48 megapixel for the ultra wide, and another 48 megapixel for the 5x optical zoom lens, which can also do up to 128 times zoom through software, which I imagine is still going to be as garbage as Samsung's 100 times is. You're not going to use this. But for 5x, probably going to look really good, in particular being 48 megapixels. And here's the wild thing. Exchange rate has it at about 910 US dollars, which is flipping crazy for those specs. And of course, we didn't just get the Mi 11 Ultra. We also are getting the Mi 11 Lite 5G and just the Mi 11 Lite, which are actually really cool looking phones in my mind. And they're incredibly thin. That's something that they really pushed for here. You can see here compared to the USB-C port, not much thicker than that USB-C port. Surface Duo fans will of course still have the thinner phone when opened up, but that's a pretty damn thin phone. And what's wild to me is not only are they packing in the 780G from Snapdragon, which will mean it'll be pretty damn fast, they've also somehow managed to pack in a 4250 milliamp hour battery, which is insane for something that is that thin. That's really, really impressive. And you're getting a pretty good set of cameras here with a 64 megapixel main, 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 5 megapixel telephoto macro camera. So it's a pretty solid little device here. And you're looking at $350 for that device as it makes its way out of China. Personally, I can't wait to see camera samples coming out from the Mi 11 Ultra. DxOMark already has it as their #1 rated camera of all time, so I'm sure it's going to take some pretty damn great photos. But personally, seeing is believing. I want to see the comparisons. I want to see the side-by-sides before I'm going to call it the camera king, but it looks pretty damn good. Something I failed to mention about that camera bump, which I've talked about in videos in the past based on leaks, is that there is a tiny screen actually here in the bump next to the camera. You can see it there, and you can see it a bit there. The idea here is that you can take a selfie using your main primary, awesome cameras, because you can see yourself in that little viewfinder, or the subject you're photographing can then see themselves in that little viewfinder as well. Look, if you're going to have an absolutely enormous camera bump like they have here, there's the screen visible there, you might as well just throw a screen in there. If you're going to be that giant, just throw a screen in there. You're going to have a periscope camera, 50 megapixel, 40 megapixel, I'm sorry, 48, another 48. Put a screen back there. Why not? Who cares? Do whatever these days. It's a crazy world. So guys, that's all the news I have for you today. Be sure to check back every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the next News Radar. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.